Hello everyone and welcome to the F45 Discovery Day. My name is Bianca and I'll be your host for this session today. Thanks everyone for jumping on. We look forward to giving you some insight on F45, what it's like to run your own F45 studio and answer any questions you might have at whatever stage you're at in the process. We'll be covering some interesting topics today, which will typically do come up before securing an F45 franchise. And these can be used on a global scale, whatever market, region, or country you might be in. The goal of this session today is to give you as much information as possible so you can feel totally comfortable and confident in moving in the next steps of your F45 journey. Feel free to drop any questions you might have throughout the time in the chat box. We'll be monitoring this throughout the session, so ask any questions you like. This is your hour of power, so there's no silly questions. Chances are maybe something you're thinking about might be something someone else is thinking about, so feel free to put them in there and we'll do our best to get to them. Now, the team at F45, we can talk hours and hours about F45, I sure can, but it's really awesome to get it from a franchisee perspective because, you know, they've had their challenges, they've had their wins, and they understand firsthand what it's like owning an F45. They've also seen the F45 brand evolve over the past years that they've been with the brand, so I'm sure we'll dive more into that today. On our panel today, we have three F45 studio panelists, all through different journeys, all from different backgrounds, and all operating successful F45 studios in the US. They're all essential parts of the business, so I think their diverse backgrounds will be something everyone can relate to on the call. So first off, we have Skylar Martin, our multi-studio owner in Massachusetts. She's opened her first studio in July 2020, F45 Foxborough, and now owns 3 studios altogether. The cool thing about Skylar is she opened her very first and only studio in Rhode Island. So thanks for joining us today, Skylar. Thank you for joining us. Do you mind giving us a little rundown of your F45 journey so far?
Yeah, happy to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Sky. So I was a member at a studio in New York, and I absolutely loved it. I found myself coming home thinking of things that I would do, that I would implement if I had a studio, and I was just so obsessed with it. And finally, my husband was like, just do it. Just do it. So we reached out to Carl, and we just wound up on this amazing journey to finding, honestly, something to be passionate about, something to love, wake up every morning, love what you do. So we come to work and it's crazy because we get to make a living doing something that helps people and changes lives. So in the year that we started, we ended up opening 2 additional studios, and every time we do, it's a completely different community, different vibe, and the stories are just unbelievable. So it's a really cool thing to be part of, and I'm really happy to have done this. I mean, it's the best thing I've ever done.
Awesome, thanks, Sky. Next up, we have Andrew West, also a multi-unit developer in the US. He opened his first studio in 2019, which was F45 Tyson in North Virginia. He owns a bunch of studios now and is taking over the F45 world with bigger developments in the works. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. Can you tell us a bit about your journey and a little sneak peek into your plans for the future?
Yeah, hi everyone. Like Sky just mentioned, happy to be here and yeah, happy to help. So yeah, I first got involved with F45 actually in 2016. I helped a friend open his studio. I had some sort of business experience before, which lent him some experience to help him get his first one open. So I helped with that. I was member number 1 at his studio similar to Sky. I first experienced F45 really as a member, but also through that minority holding I had in his studio, I gave him a little bit of capital to get the ball rolling for his opening. So I do own a little bit of that studio. It gave me insight into the actual economics, the unit economics of the deal, and I realized if I could scale it, become quite compelling in business. So. Like Bianca said, I first opened a studio in 2019 myself. It was right at the end of 2019. I opened 2 more just before the pandemic hit, which is interesting. I'm sure we'll have some questions on how things have changed and what have you around that. But it was a really good learning curve. We've opened a few more since then. And we're on a journey to open, anywhere between 90 and 100 studios. with F45. So we've signed a larger development agreement in the last 7-8 months, and are underway with that. So we've got a lot coming up in the pipeline. It's really exciting. It's a really exciting time to be part of the brand. We launched another opening campaign yesterday, soft opening campaign. We're already getting good interest in a studio we're not doing any real marketing for. And the main thing that I'm hearing from our sort of sales team is, people have, done the workout before. They've seen it in other cities, and they're glad to see we're coming to their neighborhood, which is very different to the story, when we first opened our first studio in 2016, and even when we were opening studios in 2019, we weren't getting that sort of that interaction from the leads. So the brand awareness is really picking up, and I think that's going to be critical for the success of the network as we move forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. That is insane, and it sounds amazing. Last but certainly not least, we have Christine Melanson from franchisee in New Hampshire and the owner of F45 Wyndham. She opened her studio doors in June 2021, and her sights are set super high for F45. Thanks for joining us today, Christine. Can you give us a taste of your F45 ride so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about this. My journey has been a little bit different than the journeys you just heard about, because my exposure to F45 started back in 2016, like Andrew, but from a different perspective. I was following a fitness influencer on Instagram, Paige Hathaway, who's a brand ambassador, and she was working out at an F45 studio in LA with Corey G as the head trainer. And I just said, I love this. Where can I find one? And started researching where there was a local F45 in my community. And in that process, I learned there were none at all, nowhere on the East Coast. And really, they were all in California. So then that led me to say, maybe this is an opportunity for me to become a business owner and take this here myself. So I reached out to headquarters, and Carl reached back out to me. At the time, I was working in corporate America. I was like working, 80 hours a week, doing the grind, and I just knew that I wanted to do something different. I wasn't yet ready to start the F45 journey at the time I started the conversation with Carl, but I knew with the information I had that I needed to do it at some point. And ironically, at that time frame, right after I spoke with him, I was laid off from my job in corporate America. The company downsized. I was back to being unemployed again and saying, okay, what am I going to do now? And I said, you know what? I'm going to take this F45 model and I'm going to work with this and I'm going to make this happen. So I didn't yet have all the tools in place. I went back to school to finish my business degree. That was a big goal for me. And while I was in school, I used the F45 model as the background for every project I did. The last project I did right before I graduated with my marketing degree was my F45 Wyndham business plan. And my professor said, this is a great start, hone in on this and do something with it. And from there, I hit the ground running. I perfected the business plan. I presented it to a business partner, my now business partner, who at the time was a good friend and also an entrepreneur. He saw it, he loved it, and we took the conversation seriously at that point with Carl. That was in August 2019. 2019, and we signed our franchise agreement in November 2019. And then COVID hit. We were supposed to open June 2020. And with the shutdown and the delays, it just, it kind of held, we had to hit pause, but we didn't stop. And we opened in June of this year, and it's going amazing. I have no regrets. We're changing lives every day, and the journeys of watching people in the community and what is being created, it's everything and then some that I ever hoped it would be.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Christine.
My pleasure.
Alongside our awesome franchisee panelists, we have our Epic HQ team here. Carl Giamacco, the President of Sales and Business Development of North America, and also Justin Chin, who is the Head of Performance at F45. Guys, do you mind give us a brief rundown of what you do, what your F45 experience has been, and perhaps some insight into how you've seen the brand evolve since you started with the company?
I'll go ahead and start. Thank you so much for having us, first and foremost, and thank you all for joining this conversation, because the hope is that this is a conversation rather than us telling you all the great things about F45. But I joined F45 in 2019, and coming from a boutique fitness experience and then also CrossFit and other gym models. The great thing about F45 and how we evolved in time is we've adapted to the climate and culture of kind of the consumer behavior coming from a COVID standpoint. So for us to adapt, from F45 Live, and then our 4 levels of in-studio experience, F45 Live, Circuit, Ultimate, F45 training has been a tremendous boost for our franchisees and our owners to stay in business versus for us to kind of spin our wheels, figure out what to do, and then move forward or try to move forward. So the reality is that a lot of our franchisees that have been in the market pre-COVID, opening in COVID, and then even now have been able to adapt according to what's been going on, which has been tremendous across the network globally. So I help kind of run the performance team worldwide. So I get some insights as to how certain consumer behavior is quite different. I primarily oversee the Western North America. So if you have any questions or things like that, feel free to ping me or shoot me an email.
Awesome.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks, Bianca. Thank you very much for everyone's time. I've got so much excitement inside me today. I'm incredibly grateful for everyone being on this call. Genuinely, the relationships that I've been able to develop over the years, and they haven't just been in the last 12, 18, 24 months. This has been, Christine and I have been speaking since 2016 before we moved our global headquarters to the USA. When I first met Skylar, she had 2 paths to take. One was an F45 franchisee, or it was going to be a budding YouTube career with cooking, and she chose F45. I remember those videos, Sky. And then you've got Westy, you've got Andrew West, who's a former professional athlete, very successful businessman, passionate about health and fitness, helped his mate get a studio up and running in the Cayman Islands, and is now looking to open multiple locations. So what I take from that is that we've got buying personas from all walks of life. And that's what I love. I love that traditionally, from F45's inception, when we started F45 or franching F45 in 2013 in Sydney, Australia, we initially thought there was just investors and owner operators, but we've found out since then that, no matter what walk of life you can come from, or you do come from, that this could be a great opportunity for you. And it's not something that you start researching today and sign a franchise agreement tomorrow and then open your studio next week. This is, some things can take time, and in many of these experiences that we have here today with our franchisees, it could be 2, 3, 4 years time to get to that stage, which we're more than happy to start the conversation, educating you as best as we can on the opportunity, and then go from there. So that was incredibly rewarding to hear. But very, very quickly, I'm just going to show you, I'm here in the Sydney office where it all began back in 2012. We're actually in an old tennis centre in Paddington, Sydney. And this is that was our first head office. It looks a little bit nicer now. We've got some flooring and some couches in here. When we started, there wasn't things like that, flooring and couches. But you'll see here where we're just next to an old tennis center here. It's an older building. If you go to the front of the building, there's no, street frontage or signage, so it's quite difficult to find. And we built this business, our first F45 studio, F45 Paddington, without any exposure. So we're very fortunate to learn early on the importance of marketing, digital marketing, and educating people on how to focus on social media to be their shop front, as opposed to going down a path of having that grade A realty, and which I'm sure we'll discuss in today's topic. But wanted to give you a little tour of where it all began as well. And I'll put it back to you, Bianca. Thank you.
Thanks. Nice to see the old stomping ground. I'm currently in the new London HQ, which is currently being built out. Should be absolutely amazing when it's done. It should be done in January. So maybe some people on the call will be coming to the January induction, which will be amazing. It'll be our first induction, so we're super excited. But let's jump into the questions. Andrew, this one's for you. As a multi-studio owner and as someone who's looking into investing in more multi-unit developments in the future, what made you want to invest in more F45 studios?
Yeah, I mean, So for me, like I said, I was member number one at the studio I helped open here, and I, as Carl mentioned, I've been around sport and fitness for a very long time, part of my life, since I was a kid really, and I was lucky enough to play professionally for a few years in my 20s. So, you know, it's been a really big part of me. But when I found F45 after having been in corporate world, you know, again, it really did change my life and brought back those memories of, you know, being really fit and healthy and feeling strong, and you know, I really enjoyed it. So for me, it starts with, you know, it's ultimately about positively impacting as many lives as possible, right? And our mission at Hillcrest Health, which is my company, is to do that, right? We want to help more people achieve their health and fitness goals, you know, by delivering the best group workout experience. And I really believe that F45 is the best group workout experience. There's no doubt in my mind that it's the best product on the street. Like I said, I've been around health and fitness for a very long time. And you know, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm just as fit as I was when I was in my 20s, all because of F45. You know, the program's done in such a way that you're able to work out 6 times a week, 7 times a week, and recover from one session to the next. And it's very, very smart. There's no other program that allows you to do that. But it is the best product on the street. But for me, like I said, if we can get our team at Hillcrest to deliver that product in the right way to as many people as possible, we're delivering on our mission, right? And obviously, the more studios that we have, you know, the more people we're going to impact in a positive way, and that's both staff and members, right, and our customers. And I know, you know, probably the attendees on the call are probably saying, yeah, but what about the money? Which is fair enough, that's right. But you know, this is an investment after all. But in all honesty, in my opinion, if you start with taking the view money first, community second, I think you're going to make your life a lot harder. You may be not setting yourself up for success, but it's going to be a lot harder to reach success. So for me, the right way around is, you know, you build an amazing community, you know, that's of staff and of members. You give an amazing experience to those people. You change lives with that amazing experience. And so long as you've got, you know, tight process around the, you know, the lead nurturing, the closing of those sales, you know, the monetary success will follow. But it's got to start that way around for me. And so for me, yeah, it's about impacting as many people as possible in a positive way. You know, and I can do that if I can help more people if I have more studios. So that's why we wanted to open as many studios as we're opening.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Andrew. I've got another one here. This is for Skylar. So being the first and only studio in Rhode Island, how did you establish a practical price for your market? Do you do some market research into the competitors in your area, or is it maybe some other tactics you used?
So our Rhode Island studio was our second studio we ended up putting up, but it was the first in Rhode Island. So we had started in Foxborough, which was also the first in its area. So I think if you have any studios in your state, I would go similar to what they're doing. I think sometimes studios try to go with like a lower pricing. And I think F45, like Andrew said, is the most premium offering on the market. It's clearly the best. What we're offering is the group experience and the personal training that would cost over $100 a session pretty much anywhere you go. So what we're offering is worth the price. So the studios in our area charged, you know, from $180 to $220. So that's pretty much what we went with, and I'm glad we did. I think again, it's tempting to go lower, but if you can stay with your group, you guys are going to stand together as a strong price product. But I also think that going off, I wouldn't call anybody even a competitor, because like we're so different than Orange Theory and CrossFit, but let's say those are our closest offerings nearby. I definitely wanted to be priced more than them, but not so much more that we were some elite, like intangible thing that most people couldn't get to. So I wanted to set ourselves above CrossFit. So I went kind of 20% above what the other offerings in the area were doing. And so far it's worked out really well. We haven't had too many people be completely priced out of our product. Most people find a way to prioritize this once they try it. So you give them that brief intro of like $6 to $10 a session. And then once they get in the door, they hear the price and they're like, I'm going to make it work because F45 is the best. So defending our value was definitely worth it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that insight. Christine, this one's for you. So we've had a bunch of questions through about trainers and staff. Since one of the most important parts of the business is the people are basically the heartbeat of the business. So how did you hire the right team, the right trainers on board at the start?
Yes, I love this question. I've actually been asked this question by other owners that are looking to, or were looking to get in and are now owners. The thing that I say as the number one most important thing is know your why and know your vision, and like shout it from the rooftops, and really, I mean, express it in a way that they feel it, they want to be a part of it. And I also went so far as to make the trainers that I brought in, I wanted them to feel like they were partners in a business, not just a staff, not just paychecks, you know, like we're giving you, you know, they're the conduit to building the larger dream. They're the conduit to the community that we want to bring in the door. The technology is there. Like Andrew said, the workouts are amazing. I mean, once you do it, you fall in love with it. But the community, the formation of the community aspect of our brand, which is so amazing. It's unlike anything I've ever witnessed or been a part of. I wanted to make sure that we really, really, really honored that pillar of the F45 brand, and like not just inside the studio, but also outside of the studio doors. So I really got them bought into my vision, and not just for this one studio, but the larger plan. This is something that we're looking, like you said, to take by storm. We want to be multi-unit owners too, because and it's not about money. It is about changing lives. When you start to do this and you see the impact that you're having on people's lives, it's the most incredible thing to be a part of. And yes, there's the, you know, profit component, and you want to be successful. But I can't think of a way to, you know, invest my time or money in a way that could impact more people. So yeah, the more studios, the larger the community gets, the brand. And that's really the vision and the mission, and that kind of why I did not stop in making sure that that was embedded in them, and that they could therefore carry that into the studio. And I made sure that I was very specific to make sure that these people could really bring that into it. So, and they do every day. Our trainers are all so passionate about this brand, and they're in this for like the long haul.
That's really interesting. Awesome. Thank you so much. We've had
I could add something, Bianca.
Yeah, please do.
I would say another thing just to go along with that, like align with the vision, is absolutely 100%, because those people are creating the community. They are the product that we're selling in addition to F45. But I think that making sure that you're finding people that are moldable, I think is the best way to say it. Like I've seen so many people with all this fitness experience come and be like, hey, I want to work here. And usually you plug those people in, and their experience doesn't necessarily translate to F45, because F45 is, in my opinion, the most revolutionary fitness offering out there. So we need people who sometimes even have less experience, but more eagerness to learn and come to the F45 way. So sometimes I seek out those like budding fitness people who want to be involved in fitness, who have the character of F45. So the enthusiasm, the excitement, the community mindedness, the inclusiveness, those qualities that you can't teach a person. If I see that in someone, I think it's so worth molding them into being a fitness professional, because you can teach fitness to people. You can't teach that charisma. So I think looking for that first and foremost is the way to build a winning team. I mean, we have 40 amazing trainers that pretty much 90% of them started off just like that, with the raw materials. We train them to be the best F45 coach they could be, and it's been a really cool thing.
Amazing. Cool.
Great response. You know what? Great response, Skylar. Oh, sorry. Go on, Christine.
One thing I wanted to say to go off of what she just said is 1,000%, because my head coach, my all-star, my eats, sleeps, bleeds F45 was not from the fitness background. She had her CPT, but she'd never done anything with it. And she came from the insurance industry and left a 15-year corporate career to come on with me to do this. I mean, she was terrified leaving her job in corporate America, but I knew that she had, like Skylar said, all the material. She had all that we needed to make her, and she is living her dream now. She's like the lights out trainer. So yeah, 100%. I agree with what she said.
Great.
Thank you. I was just going to say, yeah, I was just going to say, and look, we're very grateful to have Justin on this call, someone with his pedigree, managing the performance management team to educate all of our franchisees on this process. It's not just, here we go, off to your own devices. You've got people like Justin and support teams to educate everyone on this process. However, what I'm hearing from both, from all responses, Christine, Andrew, and Skylar, is you build the DNA, which builds the community, and then everything comes after that. And what's really interesting about Skylar's response is that, it's going to sound quite odd, but we're not necessarily looking for gym operators. We're more so looking for, value providers and energy providers. And if you've got people that can nurture relationships and people that can, provide value and energy, that's what builds the community and grows the studio. And that's when obviously the success from a financial standpoint comes from as well. And I found that really interesting as well, that, traditionally I thought, right, we're going to need to find an experienced trainer, someone that has 5, 10, 15 years experience, maybe someone that studied sports science at university or college, someone that has all this wealth of knowledge. But really, I mean, if you've got those value add-ons, that's incredible. But really, it's more about having those key skill sets of being bright, bubbly, and energetic, being personable, which couples very well with what this product offering is.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for your input. I'm actually going to hit this one at Justin because it might actually tie in with that one pretty well. Owning a studio inevitably means that, clients go in, go out, there's a constant flow of new faces. But what makes long-term members stick around? Like, from your experience, Justin, what's the typical life cycle of a member? Are there certain tactics we can use to keep people to stick around for longer?
Yeah, so the great thing about the way the performance team has actually shifted the conversation with owners, managers, and trainers within the studios is really providing maximum engagement with our clientele so that we can keep them as long as possible. So I think previously when I first joined F45 in 2019, we didn't really have dialed in processes. So we're continuing to fine tune that in time based upon the client behavior and consumer behavior, kind of keeping focus and track on long-term solutions and just revenue for our franchisees and owners. So engagement is first and foremost goal setting to ensure that we're selling our memberships appropriately, because that membership conversation may be hard for some of our personnel, even some of our owners. So are you appointing the right person in the right role to handle those conversations accordingly? And are we showing enough value upfront through the trial process and period so that people understand what they're getting from their membership? In addition to that, to set regular cadences of follow-ups or check-ins, so 30, 60, 90 days for new members so that they stay even longer, right? So typically, a typical client in any really fitness environment or setting will probably stay a member with you for 3 to 6 months, but how can we get them to 8 to 12 months? The great thing about F45 is that we build off of community. And so with that community is longevity for and lifetime value of that client. Because we're not looking for just a solution for fitness goals. We're actually providing way more value beyond just fitness. It's really the community aspects, is developing relationships, is building kind of that rapport and engagement with our clients so that not only are they members for a long period of time, but we actually know the ins and outs of their family, of their history, and kind of what they want in the future. So reassessing, reevaluating goals is absolutely critical to maintain long-term clients.
Amazing. Thank you, Justin. This one's for Andrew. We love hearing about wins and touching on challenges, but because essentially this is how we grow as a business and a business owner. So what's your biggest challenge that you've come over as a business owner?
COVID aside, so I'm sure people have got questions about COVID. I've actually seen one. There's a in the bot COVID. But yeah, I think personally, well, yeah, I mean, this is probably quite a personal one, but it might resonate with a few people on the call. But can you guys hear me okay? I think you got me.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Sorry. It is really actually trust. More specifically, trusting people that you've hired to do the job that they're getting paid for. As a business owner, well, I guess, I work remotely 90% of the time. So I'm, 90% of the time I'm in a different place to where my studios are based. I've worn a lot of different hats in this process. So I do know the ins and outs of the business. But I also know if I was to, try and do everything myself, and the business would be wholly inefficient and would never reach the potential that it potentially, it has, and would most likely fail. So, whilst I know a reasonable amount, I know I don't know everything, and I also know I'm not going to have all the ideas, all the answers. So, for me, it really is to really, appreciating the fact that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Right? It's a philosophical phrase for a reason, but it's true. I guess, you're going to be much better off in the long run if you, or surround yourself rather with fundamentally good people who you can support, you can train, and you can resource properly. But if you can trust them to do the job that you've hired them to do, and not micromanage them, I think you're gonna give. It's similar to what Sky was just saying about the trainers and putting them in the right position and what have you. But that's where you're gonna see the success. And I think initially when I started, and I think there's a lot of small business owners when they first start, that they feel the need that they have to do everything, and they end up trying to do everything. They end up micromanaging. It becomes very, very inefficient. You have a team of people that are working with you and for you that don't want to be working with you and for you if you get into that sort of downward spiral. So for me, it's it's really being able to trust the people that I'm employing and to do the jobs that they're going to do, and make sure that they've got the right resources that will allow them to go and execute on the plan that we put in place. But yeah, I guess trust, which is sometimes quite a hard thing if you're, a bit of a control freak, which I am, self-admittedly. But it's that for me was the main sort of challenge that I've had to overcome as a business owner as my group's grown. You have to delegate and you have to let go of that, control aspect sometimes, and that's for the best in the long run.
I think that is the number one thing I would tell myself if I could go back, is to first get the right people in place, and then second, delegate to them. Like, that's literally the advice I would give myself, is delegate sooner, because the more you try to take on everything, an entrepreneur sure has the vision and is the one like putting the feet to the ground here, but you cannot do it all. You need people need people, businesses need people. So putting the right people in place and then trusting them to do the work. And if they're not, you can't just give someone something and immediately expect them to do it, right? We have to be more in the business of developing people to delegate to, instead of doing it all. Putting it all on your back is a really short-term solution, whereas having the people around and then taking the time to really teach those people how to do what you do is going to serve you so much better in the long run. Like, I have such a great quality of life. Like, my business is everything to me, but it's not my only thing now, because I learned to delegate, and delegating actually builds a web of people around that are life change too. Like, there's so many people now who this is everything to them, so it's not just me. So delegating is the number one thing that you can learn before starting any business, but especially this one. We need people in F45. Really.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. That's an amazing insight. And I think everyone can relate to that, definitely. Scarlett, I'm going to get you to talk again. So being a multi-studio owner, having a lot of experience in looking for sites and locations for your studios, from your knowledge, what would you say are the most important things to look for when looking for real estate?
The real estate piece is probably the most underestimated. If it's your first time in commercial real estate, I was a homeowner before I did this. It's nothing like buying a home. It's nothing like buying an apartment. So I think just going into it with the right mindset, even just a Google search of like, what's the temperament I should have as a person, and going into looking for a real estate space on the temperament of not seeming too eager. Definitely having a broker that works for you out of state is my opinion, but having someone who's working for you, not going to the landlords yourself, but not seeming too eager, not falling in love with one particular space. For example, the place we are in Foxborough, Mass, I think is like the best location we could have ever had. But we fell into it. It was our fourth choice. So I think not falling in love with the space, being open to other spaces is probably the first thing. You want the landlord to sell you on the space. You don't want to be begging that landlord for the space. I think in the long term, that's not really a great start to a 10-year relationship. And then I think once you get the temperament right, you're open, you're relaxed to finding spaces. I think simple things to look for would be something like parking. I kind of underestimated the need for parking. If you're in a city location or really urban area, like we are when we're closer to Providence in the Rhode Island studio, it's different. But as far as the suburbs, having a 36-person Saturday, there's going to be 30 cars rolling in. So I think if parking is a challenge, that's a barrier for your members to join. So I look for really good parking. And then the second thing I look for is just finding a landlord that's willing to do most of the work. So I think like minimizing that construction cost any way you can is going to be really important. So if you can find a landlord that will build a significant portion of your studio, or maybe even a space that's already suited for a gym. This was a paint shop, believe it or not. So it was already wide open. The ceiling was already exposed. It already had existing bathrooms. So we really just did some demo, put in the flooring. So I wouldn't say it was simple, but again, we also strategically pick landlords that are willing to do a significant portion of the build as opposed to giving us TI. Because when you get TI, you're expected to do the construction yourself, and then the landlord gives you money towards that. But again, if you can convince the landlord to do your work, usually you get keys in hand after the work is done, and then the rent-free period that you negotiated begins. Whereas if they give you the keys, construction has so many delays, especially right now. So I think instead of taking on the burden of the unknown with construction and delays, if you can get a landlord that's willing to do most of your build, that would be, I would pick a space just for that. If I could, like if I had like a landlord willing to do nothing, I've done it before. A landlord willing to do nothing, but I love the location, or something a little bit different location, but the landlord was willing to work with me. F45, people are going to find this no matter where you are. My first F45 was in the upstairs of a dilapidated building in basically one of the worst areas in Buffalo. So, I mean, and that studio was popping. It was so fun, like vibrant, lively community. So you can literally put, and since that F45's been there, not to go off about that one, but I love it. Since that F45 has been there, that community has been rising. So F45, people will find you where you are. I would pick a space that's right for F45 and for you as a tenant, as opposed to something that you're like gonna pay more for. There's amazing plazas that have all the anthropology and you're gonna pay $100 a square foot for it, but is that gonna be worth it for F45? If you can build in profitability and trust that F45 is the best, people are gonna find you, so. And then the last thing I would look for is just neighbors. Who are your neighbors? You don't need to have Crate and Barrel as your neighbor and be in the top amazing plaza, but I try to stay away from, you know, those budget neighbors. Like we are next to a Supercuts here and we do really well, but I try to stay away from like a Dollar Tree or something. This is a premium offering, so I do want to be surrounded by more premium offerings if I can.
Yeah, I'll jump in if that's okay, but I've looked at literally hundreds of locations. And so, you know, one thing that we, you know, F45 do have is a mapping tool. We actually utilize another mapping tool as well. But the mapping tool is actually quite useful. It does give you some demographics. So I would always look into the demographics of a particular territory. You know, I think the F45 tool gives you sort of average household income, also gives you population statistics. Ideally, you're looking for, you know, anywhere between 10 and 15,000 people between 25 and 45 years old, which is kind of the 20-year sort of gap that we want. And you can find tools off the shelf as well if you want to get into deeper analytics. The data can tell you so much, when you're sort of trying to narrow down. But then I would really recommend getting on the floor, on the ground, and boots on the ground, and actually doing, you know, the site tours yourself, and also looking at the other co-tenants, as Skylar has said. You know, an exercise we went through was looking at, you know, the top performing F45s from 2019. You know, we got very, very granular around data and you know, geofencing those locations and tagging phones and following phones to different co-tenants. And, you know, there's about 50 odd different co-tenants that you know, that are going to be good for you. And if you can find out what those co-tenants are, and get an understanding, you know, where they're located, you know, if you can find plazas that have, you know, 2, 3, 4 of those co-tenants, you know, you're going to do well in that plaza, in that center. But as Skylar said, you know, the way we market these things is all digital marketing. You know, people are going to find you, and you don't necessarily need to be, you know, in a $100 per square foot, you know, location paying through the nose. You know, some of our most profitable studios aren't in, you know, the marquee locations, you know, because the rent is lower, but, you know, we can still charge, you know, we still charge the same price for the membership, and you know, they actually do better than some of the more marquee locations. So location is important, but it's not the be all and end all. But if you can find something, we always budget for, you know, anything under $10,000 gross a month, is, you know, for us is a good metric to use on the go forward, and that's what we're looking for, you know, 2,500 to 3,500 square feet for gross $10,000 all in per month. And I think you're doing okay, and you'll do well if you can find those locations, you know, from a profitability standpoint.
Awesome. You're absolutely right about the location thing. I know here in London, you wouldn't even know an F45 is there. When you like walking, there's F45 Oxford Circus. It's actually in an old underground car park. And you're like, oh, there's a little F45 sign. Go down the stairs and it's absolutely pumping, back-to-back classes. They're always busy. So, you know, you don't have to have that, as you said, a shop front to have an F45. A lot of locations would be places you wouldn't even realize that there is an F45 besides the little light up sign. So you're absolutely right. Christine, this one's for you. We had a lot of questions come in about marketing. So how did you market your studio when you first started up? What was your pre-launch marketing strategy?
So for us, since we had opened or signed our franchise agreement in 2019, as soon as that happened, you know, we went on the map as far as Wyndham is coming soon. That immediately, honestly, like you're saying, if people are looking for you, they'll find you. We had people already looking for us. At that point, there were a few Massachusetts locations that opened. So with that, I started the community, even knowing that we might not be coming right away. It was, okay, start letting people know, like, this is the plan. We're coming soon. I had trainers that were starting to reach out at that point for potential jobs. And so I would start engaging with them and carry the conversations on with them through the process that it would take us to get, you know, through construction. On top of that, I came from a marketing background prior to doing this. So I started hitting B2B relationships with all of the local businesses, going around and letting them know we were going to be coming into town. You know, when we got our free trial, you know, cards, as soon as we had the materials in hand, we were, you know, throwing them everywhere. Hosting the outdoor boot camps during pre-sale when the weather would permit. We were hosting these free outdoor boot camps, and we were working with people in the local community, like the people in the town or another local business, to help promote that. That's how it really started. And then from there, other businesses were, I want to get involved with you guys. I want to develop a relationship with you. So we were developing these relationships before our marketing even actually hit went live. And then when our pre-sale actually started, we already had amassed a following of, 300 people on Instagram. We were already established with business partnerships. So from that point, once the marketing actually hit, at that point during our, we did 2 months of pre-sale marketing, the activity really ramped up. I mean, and it worked amazingly. I mean, we pre-sold 175 memberships in a very short window. So it was because we generated word of mouth and awareness of, you didn't, with our digital footprint, we leveraged all we could on social media, and then just really just shouted it to the rooftops to anybody that we could form a relationship with. And the other thing is, in addition to forming those relationships, we started sponsoring local events, even though we didn't have a door open yet. We just said, hey, there's a 5K. Our business does exist. We have a lease signed. We are in the process of construction. So, but we're still going to get involved in this event. So we were doing things like that before the doors even opened. And that really I would say that had a really huge impact.
Great. That's some really good insight. Thank you very much, Christine. So Justin, there's one here for you. What makes an exceptional studio? So from your experience with working with a high volume of studio owners and a large amount of different studios, what do you think makes an outstanding studio?
Yeah, I think Skylar, Andrew, and Christine touched upon it earlier, but your team is the face of your business. So your team will make or break your business. So hiring the right people, knowing how to vet the right people, looking at characteristics and qualities of human beings, of individuals that can add value to your business from a community standpoint is absolutely critical. Obviously, we need those skill sets depending on the role and responsibility. If you have a trainer, if you have a head trainer, if you have a sales manager, if you have a regional manager who's overseeing multiple locations, those skill sets need to be there. But to what Skylar mentioned earlier, was the ability to be humble and to really be open ears and open-hearted about and open-minded about learning and really evolving through the process. Because on day one, for you to sign the lease, to get to your studio opening, to being profitable, if you're not profitable on grand opening day, which is our target for you all, we have to continue to educate and develop our staff so that they're absolutely fine-tuned. And there's no point in our day-to-day operation or business where everyone's going to be perfect, right? So we want to continue to have those training and role-playing sessions and really make sure that our team is fully bought in to really create an outstanding product and service. So I would say that's absolutely the most critical.
Perfect. Andrew, this one's for you. Some advice from your future self and looking back on your journey so far, what would you do differently if you were to start from scratch?
So yeah, I guess really, I mean, upfront investment pays the most, right? And that's what I've learned, and that's what I would do differently. When you start a new business, it's going to be scary. It always is. Especially from a financial perspective. So, it's very typical and completely normal to be conscious of every single penny that's going out the door, and you should be. But you shouldn't let, one thing I've learned is that you shouldn't let that feeling and that fear of spending money early on, especially in a lot of cases before you're actually generating any money. And, obviously Christine's just touched on it there about sponsoring events before the studios even open. But you shouldn't let that fear of spending money dictate your strategy, right? You've got to make the necessary investments and you need to make them up front. Don't penny pinch, because, penny pinching effectively will be your downfall. If you cut corners, it's going to show in your pre-sale, it's going to show in your build out, it's going to show in your staff and their ability to deliver a top-notch experience, right? If you can't deliver a life-changing experience to members, it's going to be harder to acquire those members. It's going to be harder to retain the members that you've actually managed to acquire. And all of a sudden you're in this sort of downward spiral where, touching on one thing Skylar said earlier, where price reduction seems like the only way out, which is actually the worst thing that's going to happen, because you're just going to get on an even greater downward spiral. So, actually what I've learned is you need to be confident to spend the money and make the investments up front. Now, I'm not saying you just spend money willy-nilly here, there, and everywhere. You need to learn to spend the right money and put the money where you're going to get an outsized return on that capital invested. And first and foremost, just what Justin said, that is on your people, right? You need to pay your staff well. You need to put proper time and resource into hiring them and also training them. You've got to give them the right resources to be able to execute. You've got to give them a game plan. You've got to give them a process around that lead nurturing and closing sales. And that's fun. That's really fundamental. We do pay our staff well. One thing we implemented this year was actually we give all our staff full benefits, a full benefits platform, for our full-time employees. I'm not saying that's absolutely critical or necessary, but it's something we were able to do as a larger group, because we're doing stuff a bit more at scale. But again, it helps attract top talent and retain top talent. And we've implemented a 4-week paid onboarding process for every single trainer, whether they're part-time, full-time, that come on board with us before they're even stepping on the floor. So when they do step on the floor, they're confident, they've got the resources, they've got the skill set to deliver that first that experience. And I think one other thing I've learned is really, again, about people. As I say, when I first started my career in the working world, it was kind of like you had to work hard and diligently, and then you earned the support and respect of your bosses, of your leaders. I think today is actually very different, and the type of people that you'll be employing in the age groups that you'll be employing in these studios, it is different. I actually think rightfully so. Today, you've got to actually support and respect those people up front from day one. And by doing so, in return, you're going to get their hard work, and they're going to execute the gameplay you put in place for them. So it's slightly different. And I don't know the age of the people on the phone, but 20 years ago, when it was like, no, you work hard, you earn your stripes, and then you get the respect and support. It's actually the other way around now, and that's something that I've learned, over the last couple of years. I guess away from people, build your studios correctly, right? And look after them on an ongoing basis. We're selling a premium product. They need to be delivered in a premium facility. Keep your equipment clean and keep your floors clean. We've got black rubber tiles. If they're dirty, it looks horrendous. And that first impression really does count. It sounds simple, but just keep your stuff clean. And, that's one thing that can really make that first impression, much, much better. And if that first impression for every single lead is really, really strong, you're off to a winning start with that person. You're more likely to actually close them, come into their trial week. So I guess, yeah, those are probably the main things that I would do differently if I started from scratch again.
Great. Thanks for that advice. We can probably squeeze one more in, and we've had a few questions in about community. Since the F45 is all about building community, Christine, how did you build your members up and grow your community base at the start?
Same, a lot of what I said in my previous answer, same things. I mean, we really just went out there because there was only, for us at the time, that we're only the second studio in New Hampshire, and the only other studio closest to us is about 45 minutes north. So there wasn't a lot of exposure. The digital footprint was starting to take hold, but it was really a lot of organic getting out there and just hitting the ground and like telling people, we're coming, we're on our way, we're coming. If we received an email or a lead, we were jumping on it to respond to them and say, pass the word to your friends. You must have a family member that you want to bring in with you. Establishing those relationships was just so critical. And the business relationships, I can't speak enough to that, because your local business partners become such champions for you coming into the community, and also just even the town. I mean, when we were working through the permitting process, talking to the heads of the town so that they would share our information with other businesses. I mean, there's just so many ways that you can establish those, connections with people. There was really no such thing as too much for us at that point. We just wanted to make the awareness of the brand as much, we just wanted to promote it as much as we could in every direction. So, I mean, we were also strategic. It's not that we were going out there saying, okay, we're just going to partner with any business. We actually were really strategic and thoughtful about these partnerships. We've partnered up with, a local, meal prep service that was right next door, a smoothie shop, so other businesses in this wellness space. And therefore it just, like I said, that organic, really those relationships and building them led to just droves of people hearing about us. And I mean, our following just started growing rapidly, and it was like wildfire. So that was, like I said, even before we started the actual marketing. And then once we did our pre-sale marketing, we were doing the ads and all of that. But it's building these relationships and forming connections. We took a lot of, I know that during the pre-sale process too, we took time with the leads that were coming in. We were having those conversations about what are your goals? What are you currently doing? We talked about the brand, so we really had those conversations were sometimes, 15, 20-minute conversations, 30-minute conversations. But that's how we started building relationships with them. And then they started passing that on to their friends. So it was, a lot of that, just really sharing everything about F45 and how we were going to change their lives. And then once they came to a boot camp, we delivered on the promise, and they just started showing up, and they keep coming every day.
Yeah, if I can quickly chime in, I know we're short on time here, but I would absolutely second that. Absolutely. Community is built upon, outside of the operational things, processes, your teams, and things like that. Brand awareness is obviously absolutely critical. The way you build your community is through your team. Kind of going back to our previous point. So from yourself, from the people that you hire, and the members that you bring on, one thing that I loved about Christine's answer is we're nurturing, we're engaging, we're developing relationships. This isn't transactional where someone gives you money for a service and that's it. The premise about F45 and why it's so great, and this is not being biased because I work for F45, but just my experience working with other boutique businesses and different brands and companies, is we build community, and that starts from you, starts from your team. And so it's really a nurturing process. We get to know people, we spend time, we take our time to get to know them, to show not only the value of our product and service, but the actual community that we build within.
Great.
Amazing. Well said. I think, look, there's so much information to digest on these calls. I've learned so much today. Honestly, this has been fantastic. If anyone listening hasn't had the chance to have their question answered, please, make sure you reach out to us. I think Bianca's going to put some contact details up at the end of this call. A couple of things I wanted to touch on, and most importantly, I believe, is what our core offering is, and that is our F45 training product. I'm not sure if you can all see Skylar's background, but I believe she's in a studio right now. And what I would like to educate everyone on this call, and potentially some of you that haven't taken a class yet, we're an innovative group training platform where no workout's ever the same. So there's constant change and constant innovation. And Bianca asked Justin a question earlier on the call about retention and how do we build membership and how do we see members stay for as long as possible. And it's so good to know that we have the back end systems in place to help continue to keep the wheels turning. However, at the core of it is the training offering, and that is this innovative workout that gets results. And in an ever-changing landscape that is the health and fitness space, how do you remain relevant? How do you see that you've got a sustainable product? And I think with innovative workouts that are not monotonous, that are not repetitive, that certainly helps. Right. So it's not like we're on a treadmill every single day. It's not like we're doing the same exercise every day. There's constant change. As Andrew alluded to in one of his responses, you've got a product here that goes between upper body and lower body, cardio and resistance. It allows you to train more than 3 times a week, 4, 5, 6 times a week, and it allows your body time to recover as well. So it's incredibly innovative in that regard. It's a fun workout that gets results. Most importantly, in my opinion, is buying a sustainable business. And I think one of the great things about F45 is that we're not limited to what we do with our floor space. We don't have 1,000 square feet dedicated to treadmills. We don't have squat racks or pin loaded machines. And I love that because we can literally uplift any piece of equipment, take it off the studio floor and introduce new equipment to the studio floor. And that's going to see we continue to be relevant and innovative and sustainable, most importantly. So there's some key takeaways from the product offering itself. And for anyone that hasn't taken a class yet, I hope that helps a little bit, but certainly try to get to a studio close by. And if you can't take a class, pop your head in and have a look at a class in action, because it will help create a lot of clarity with everything we're discussing today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. There's so much information. I'm just going to share my screen quickly, and I'm actually going to get Carl to take the wheel again on what the next steps are in the process from here. Carl, did you want to just let everyone know how they can get in touch with you and what the next steps are in the process from here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you, Skylar. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Christine. I mean, Christine, it took us 5 years to meet. I remember embracing you, giving you a big hug when we met in Boston for the first time. And now to see you open your studio after a year and a half with the pandemic, I find that amazing. So genuinely, thank you very much to everyone on the call. This was more an educational tool today. It's great that we've got the ability to educate you on what next steps can look like, should that be of interest to you. But just having the ability to get these responses from the horse's mouth, so to speak, has truly been amazing. So thank you. If anyone listening, watching today, or watching later as we have recorded this, is obviously interested in wanting to learn more about F45, as I said, there's a lot of information to digest. Please reach out to me at carl@f45hq.com, and we can answer any questions you have, and walk you through the process should this opportunity be something that is of interest to you. Whether you're inquiring for a family friend, a son or a daughter, or yourselves, please reach out and I'll be happy to walk you through all the different ways in which we can provide as much clarity as possible to getting you to hopefully join the F45 family. I will mention one last thing, sorry, is just around where we're at in the process. And there were a few questions which I don't think we got to answer around the pandemic, which I'm more than happy to share, at a later stage, should anyone want to connect about that. But one thing that's really interesting about this opportunity is that we got to America in 2016-17. We moved our global headquarters there in 2017. With the pandemic in 2020 and part of this year, I think that's paused we're basically still in the embryonic stages of growth. We're still in our infancy, I believe. So it's not like this is an opportunity that has come and gone. We're still growing, and which is really exciting to note for anyone that is listening, and knowing that we have a sustainable product due to innovation. It's surely here to be around for a long time. So again, thank you everyone for your time, and any questions, anything at all, please reach out at any time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We look forward to hearing from you and helping you build your empire.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.